Hey guys, what's up? Andrew Gamer GL here, and welcome back to yet another video. And today, it's another F1 video. And I know I am a little bit late probably to record and post this, but obviously I had to deal with school stuff and had to focus a little bit more on that. But yeah, I managed to see part of the weekend. I was able to see qualifying, but I couldn't watch the race because for some reason my TV provider was not going to show the race. But I did manage to rewatch the race on some kind of streaming channel that had it pre-recorded, so I was able to see a bit more on what unfolded during that race. But anyway, I'm just gonna get through the main talking points and share my overall thoughts on this weekend and how the teams and drivers did. At least some of them. So, anyway, let's begin off with practice. So I will say, as I guys have told you, I am a big Vettel fan and Aston Martin fan. And not gonna lie, I was a bit excited when I saw both Aston Martins of Vettel and Stroll setting some very impressive lap times. But I kept reminding myself, this is just practice. Anything can go wrong, just like what happened with Canada earlier in this year. Vettel was like P1 in FP3 and then came to qualifying and was knocked out of Q1 with his teammate. So yeah, I made sure to not get too ahead of myself from that. But I was pretty hopeful. Mercedes also looked decently competitive. Haas did not look hopeful at all, and neither did McLaren. So we came into qualifying, and obviously, of course, Williams were terrible, and I think everyone expected that. But anyway, we came to qualifying and we did get a few shockers. The first one is, well, maybe it's a shocker, maybe it's not, depending on how you look at it. But once again, Ricardo was knocked out of Q1 while his teammate Lando Norris made it all the way to Q3. And considering where the McLaren package was, or seemed like it was, for that weekend, Norris did a good job, and Ricardo continued to be on a downward spiral, which is unfortunate. But also, apart from that, nothing too surprising happened in Q1. Something else did do. Esteban Ocon also got knocked out of Q1 while Alonso went to Q3, which was not great. Especially considering Ocon was the one who had the upgrade package coming into this weekend. Maybe the upgrades didn't work, who knows? Alonso's going to have them at the next race in Mexico, so we'll see if if it really was the upgrade package that is bad, or if Ocon just sucked that weekend. But anyways, another surprising one was Vettel's teammate Lance Stroll got into Q3 while Vettel got knocked out in Q2. Not by much, but being outqualified by your teammate by almost 3/10 was not really a good look. But at least it's not getting knocked out of Q1 like it was for Ricardo and Ocon. I also heard Vettel was having trouble setting up his car in the right window, which explains why his lap looked so out of place. But anyway, Stroll did really well to get into Q3. Norris, as I said, also did a good job getting into Q3. Albon, he nearly made it into Q3 in a Williams, which we know is by far the worst car on the grid this year. So he was mega impressive in that qualifying session. He put his car he put his car in a place where it shouldn't be. And hats off to Albon for that. And Zhou also looked like he was about to make Q3, but unfortunately his lap time got deleted for exceeding track limits. So anyway, then when we got into Q3, we had an unexpected pole sitter with Sainz on pole, Verstappen on second place, and obviously because Leclerc had a grid penalty for taking new components, which meant he couldn't start the race in second and had to start the race instead in 12th, which did promote a few of the drivers who qualified behind to go up. And Perez also had his own grid penalty, and so did Alonso. So all those guys dropped a few places. But after the penalties, I think the one that shocked me the most was Vettel's teammate Lance Stroll in P5. And not gonna lie, I thought if there was one weekend where Stroll could pull off a masterclass, it would be this one. It just seemed like it was going to be that way. He was starting up in such a good position. The Aston Martin and their drivers in general almost always get good starts. And yeah, things were looking pretty bright for Stroll. So Stroll, that surprised me. Stroll up in P5. Albon starting in P8 also really surprised me. So hats off to him as well. But anyway, I think that's as far as surprises can get. Then we came to race day, and immediately in the first lap, Carlos Sainz got taken out by George Russell, and Sainz was almost immediately out of the race, which is a shame because it looked like maybe not for a win, but he was definitely up for a podium, I feel like. Yeah, he was definitely up for a podium, but with all that chaos, Stroll was in third, and Sebastian Vettel, my favorite driver, got a brilliant start and went from P10 to P5 on the grid, making up 5 places on the first few corners. I mean, it's just what Vettel does. His starts this season have probably been some of the best I have seen from an F1 driver in a while. His starts have been quality to watch. And I think Yuki Tsunoda also made up 5 places at the start, so hats off to him as well on a really good start. But I also want to say, George Russell, he needs to stop making these incidents and blaming them on other drivers. That's actually one of the things I hate about George Russell is during a crash or any kind of crash, he never takes the blame on himself and always puts the blame on others, which I don't really like. Although, to be fair, I think Verstappen was also like that during his early days in his F1 career as well. So, I'm not gonna be too much on that, but yeah, it doesn't really give him too many fans, does it? But anyway, with that being said, Max Verstappen in his Red Bull led the way out in front ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And to be fair, Max didn't massively pull a gap away from Lewis. Lewis was keeping in pretty close distance to Max in that Mercedes, and credit to Hamilton for that. Eventually, after a while, George Russell got a 5-second time penalty for that collision. He got past Vettel's teammate Lance Stroll, and then soon came the first round of pit stops, and the only two who did not pit and stayed out were Leclerc and Vettel. And that turned out to be the right call because just 2 laps later, Bottas in the Alfa Romeo beached his car into the gravel, which then brought out another safety car, I think that was the first safety car. Yeah, my bad. It brought out the safety car, and Leclerc and Vettel got very cheap pit stops, which made Leclerc jump a few places, and it also helped Vettel jump up against his teammate Lance Stroll. But when the race got away again, just when I thought this was going to be one of Stroll's best weekends and he was going to pull off a masterclass, because it seemed like he was going to challenge Seb for that next position. But then, when Alonso got a great run on him on the slipstream and tried to pass him, Stroll very lately turned into the right, where Alonso was heading, and those two collided, as you can see over here, and which made Stroll's rear wing disappear, and it also made Alonso do one of the most strangest wheelies I think I've seen a Formula One car do. But what makes this even more impressive is I genuinely thought at this point Alonso's race was over, along with Stroll's. I thought there was no way his car could have survived that impact. But it turns out the only damage that Alonso had to his car was his front wing and I believe his mirrors. Apart from that, his car seemed completely fine, which is unbelievable car control from Alonso. And we'll get to him and his performance later on. But yeah, after that, the race seemed pretty dull for a while, but then things started kicking off when Max had an incredibly slow stop from Red Bull. I think it was like 11 seconds, which then meant Lewis was able to take the lead with his pit stop. And I thought, could this finally be the time? Could this finally be the race Lewis gets his first win of the year in? But unfortunately, the pace of the Red Bull seemed too strong. But also, I want to say, Vettel actually led 2 laps of this race. And I know it was not 100% on merit because he didn't pit yet by that point. But it's been so long since we last saw the name Vettel at the top of the charts, and it did feel very nostalgic, and I had a big smile on my face. And the fact Lewis was the one who overtook Vettel for the lead afterwards pretty soon just made it all the more poetic in my opinion, with because those two over the years used to be battling for the championship. In It was really nice to see. But my god, after that, when Vettel came into the pits, Aston Martin gave Vettel an even longer pit stop than Red Bull gave Max. I believe it was an almost 17-second pit stop, and I was like, what the hell? How could you guys have let this happen? A 17-second pit stop. I was so furious at the Aston Martin team, and I was like, they ruined Vettel's race. Now he's out of the points. The midfield is pretty hard to overtake. He's not going to salvage much here. But then I was proven wrong. Near the end of the race, Vettel kept pulling off overtake over overtake over overtake on the midfield cars, and he really made amends for the bad pit stop that his team gave him. And then, not to mention, he made a last lap overtake on Kevin Magnussen to just finish in 8th place, which soon afterwards became 7th after Alonso's penalty for having an unsafe car, which I think was probably the most bullshit penalty I've ever seen the FIA give to a driver during race weekend. Like, I understand why Haas protested. I get it from their point of view, because they were shown many meatball flags in the past, and they had every right to question the FIA. Why didn't Alpine get one for the mirrors and the wing not really being changed much? So I can understand from their point of view, and their protest worked, and Alonso got a penalty. But they really, if it was an unsafe car, they should have called Alonso into the pits mid-race to change it, not just add a 30-second time penalty afterwards. That is just stupid. Because I think if they told him during the race, Alonso definitely could have salvaged at least a few points instead of getting none at all. But yeah, as I said for the lead earlier, the pace of Max Verstappen's Red Bull was just too strong, and he passed Lewis with 3 laps to go and took his 33rd win of his career and took his 13th win of the season. And because he and Red Bull won the race, that meant the Red Bull team is now officially the Constructors' Champions for 2022, which is a really fitting way to end this weekend after, of course, the passing of the legendary owner of that Red Bull team, Dietrich Mateschitz. And may he rest in peace, but he would be very proud of where this team is at and how their drivers are performing. He'll be very proud of that. So Max won the race with Lewis in second place. Leclerc did a good job holding off against Perez, to take third place for Ferrari. And of course, Ferrari had tire degradation issues again, which seemed to be a common trend for them this season. Perez, Max's teammate, took fourth. George Russell, Hamilton's teammate, took fifth. Lando Norris in the McLaren took sixth place, which, considering where the McLaren car was this weekend, was a pretty impressive performance. Not to mention, he did make a few impressive overtakes. And of course, P7, Sebastian Vettel, with some incredible overtakes of his own, and he also got the Driver of the Day vote, which is pretty fair in my opinion. Of course, I'm a Vettel fan, so I'm gonna be biased, but yeah, anyways, about that. So yeah, Vettel 7th, Magnussen in the Haas finished 8th for Haas's home race. He was the only driver on the grid who went for a one-stop strategy, and it worked, and they got points. So fair play to Haas. Yuki Tsunoda finished in 9th. He got 2 points now, which is his first point-scoring race since, I believe, Barcelona this year. It's been a long time since he scored points. And in P10 was Esteban Ocon, who was Alonso's teammate. He had an meh weekend, to be honest. The only reason he even got that 10th place point was even because of Alonso's penalty. But yeah, overall, my personal thoughts on this race, it was very exciting. Maybe not so much in the first half, but the second half of the race was an absolute thrill to watch and very entertaining. I'm giving that race an 8 out of 10. Was very solid. Very solid race. But yeah. Anyway, guys, those were my personal thoughts on this race. If you guys have enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button down below. And if you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button so you'll know more about when I upload a video, whether it's F1 related or shows that I watch. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Peace out, everybody.